Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Obviously, from the title tonight, we are talking about life lessons, specifically from my time in rehab. And I don't want that to deter you from not listening to the episode, from not being able to relate. But rehab is a time where you get to know yourself down to the fucking core if you put the right work in. And a lot of the lessons that I learned in rehab apply to everybody that has not dealt with addiction or, issues in their life. There are way more than 10 huge takeaways from rehab, but for the sake of time, we're just going to go through 10. So without further ado, number 1, Taylor Swift said it best. The problem is you. The problem is not the certain behavior. It's not the sex. It's not the alcohol. It's not the gambling. It's not the self-sabotage. Whatever you struggle with, as a result of the mental issue that you have, the problem still comes back to you being the problem. And this is your problems manifesting in all different ways that can negatively impact your life. Mine was just a huge extreme to the point of actually having life consequences in the form of drug addiction. As I said in the intro, it is extremely important for everybody, not just people that have been through rehab, to know themselves down to their core or as best as they can, because you need to know what your problems are, and you need to know how those problems manifest into actions and behaviors. To give you an example, we had a great trauma counselor come in and talk to us and give us this tree example, and it is exactly applicable to the actions that we deal with now. And for the trunk of the tree, it is that action, it's that behavior, it is that way that your problems manifest in the world, is the middle of the tree. And the branches of the tree are all the consequences for that action, behavior, or thing. And the roots are the key. Those are the meat and potatoes of the problems that you need to focus on. Because without knowing what the root cause of the problems are, you are never going to get rid of the trunk of the tree. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense with that. And calling out guys a little bit here too, this is the perfect example of the need for sex. The problem is you in this situation. I have known so many guys in my life that need this constant reassurance of sex and physical touch, or just physical affection, up for that matter. And this comes from something. This is person to person, but it is very common in guys for just to go out and need this physical connection need. And the problem is you in that situation. It's not the girl. It's not anything else. It is you not having something in your life that you need to find the root of. Moving on to number 2. Everybody needs a healthy way to cope, or everyone needs healthy coping skills. And if you haven't been to rehab, you might not feel a need to learn how to cope with certain things just because everything's been a certain way your entire life. But to give you a background of what a coping skill is a behavior or action that you do in response to a trigger or a craving. So for an addict or for a recovering addict, this is going to be something that you do in times when you have a certain craving or when you're around a certain trigger in your life. And for me, this was pretty prevalent, that I needed to make sure that my coping skills were the way that they were. And, to give you some examples, in times of stress, you may be the person that flocks towards chocolate, or you might go to the gym whenever you're super stressed out. And then in times of feeling sorry for yourself, you may have a glass of wine at the end of the night as a way to cope with stress from work. Or you might just overeat on certain things in order to get those happy feelings whenever stress is super, super high. But for me, my biggest coping skills that I learned throughout this process were the power of writing, the power of walking around, moving my body, doing something in a positive way for my physical body and my mental body. Made me really get away from the triggers and the stresses of what I was going through. Number 3, Journaling and being mindful helps a lot more than you think. And in rehab, we were taught we had to journal and be mindful all the fucking time, like almost beating a dead horse type of consistency with this. You would start and end each session with journal entries and writing down on a piece of paper exactly what you're feeling in the moment. And then throughout the course, you would take notes over material. So you're being mindful with stuff that's going on. And I like to compare this to someone that tracks macros or that has a certain goal, right? To give a little bit of context on the macro example, the more often that you track your food, your calories, you have an output over scale weight and what you look like in the mirror. If you track your weight, if you track your macros for a year straight, you have so much data, so much information to give you certain metrics that you want to track. It is the same thing with journaling. The more often you do it and the more consistent you are with it, you can track certain trends with how you're feeling. And whenever you have positive feelings, you can track, okay, what is this certain thing that is the input for this positive action? Or with the inverse, right? If you notice yourself feeling anxious 3 or 4 times a week, you can track, oh, who did I talk to or what did I do on those days to make me feel a little bit more anxious. And I've honestly had a little bit of an urge to do this, of like releasing my own type of information or like question of like a daily reflection question, just because we had to do it so much in rehab. And I learned so much about myself from just journaling every day. Distraction free, by the way. Yeah, I've had a little bit of thought of like releasing something at some point to give people like some reflection questions. But yeah, journaling is extremely powerful. It is one of the only times you can be present with yourself without distractions. And, journaling and prayer were, huge helps for me in the mindfulness category and all this stuff. And journaling also, like tracking the trends and all that stuff, journaling really made me, it helped me find what brought me the most peace in my life. And I found out on the days that I went to church or the days after I went to church, it just felt like my soul was at peace and my stress was lower, my anxiety was lower. I felt closer with the Lord. I felt closer with the thing that was keeping me on this earth. And I wouldn't really know that unless I was tracking it or journaling about how I was feeling. So, not saying you need to journal twice a day, 3 times a day in order to track these trends, but I think everybody, whether they've been to rehab or not, should be mindful or journal in a certain way, however they see fit. And this kind of goes right into number 4. Number 4 is protect your peace, people. Protect your peace. In order to protect your peace, though, you got to find it. And it takes trial and error. I can't give you the exact recipe on what it takes to find your peace, but there are certain metrics that you can do. You might be able to find your peace through coping skills or activities you already do. Like you might notice certain things like working out, like cooking or going on a walk, church, spending time with your friends, your family, doing stuff like that. You might feel genuine peace when you do those things. And once you find things that genuinely, I should say, bring you that peace, you don't fucking let them go. You do everything you can to prioritize those things and make them non-negotiables in your life. My example was church, right? I have 2 times per week that are non-negotiables for me that I go to church and I be present with God because it brought me so much peace in the toughest part of my life. And I try to once every weekday, once a weekend to go to a Catholic mass, but the fact that it's in my calendar and it's a non-negotiable for me on those days, is a huge testament of I'm making time for this because I feel a sense of peace and it adds to my life. So, long story short, find what brings you peace. Don't fucking let it go and treat it as a time priority. All right. Number 5, forgiveness, compassion, and empathy are learned skills. And that might sound pretty self explanatory, but you need to have an inward version of these 3 things. And what I mean by that is, yeah, it's easy to say you can forgive somebody else. It's easy to think you might be compassionate for somebody else. Or it might be easy to say, yeah, I've been empathetic for other people before. That's not too hard. But what if you reverse the question? Is it possible that you can forgive yourself for certain things? Can you be compassionate with yourself? Can you be empathetic for yourself? And what I learned was, in order for you to let other people forgive you, you must forgive yourself for a certain thing or a certain action, behavior, how you treated somebody in the past. They're not going to forgive you unless you forgive yourself first, because when you go and explain the situation to them, they're going to see right through the bullshit in your eyes and in your tone if it's not genuine. And that was the biggest thing for me coming from drug addiction. There is so much guilt. There's so much shame with some of the people that you did wrong, some of the commitments that you missed out on, and just a lot of the actions that you do because you're so selfish in that time period as an addict, that it can almost eat you alive. The shame and guilt can. It really does, of how you acted in some of those times. And from firsthand experience, you are never going to get forgiveness from other people unless you forgive yourself first. And it took me a while to be able to do that. And I still look back and can't believe some of the shit that I did as a result from drug addiction. But in the time, it's a phase of your life where you take nothing for granted because you learn so much. But now is a time where I prioritize certain things in my life to never become that person again because of how it made me feel from all the shame and the guilt. And you can't forgive yourself unless you are compassionate and empathetic. So that's kind of how all those 3 things tie into each other. Yeah, wow. Flashbacks with all that. But all right, number 6. Live life in the black and white, not the gray area. And I need to explain this one a little bit because it's a little more dense. It took me time in rehab. The recovery from drug addiction was all black and white and not gray. So let's break down this black, white, and gray thing real quick. If you look at a color scale and on the right side is black, the left side is white, and in the middle, there's about a bajillion shades of gray, right? There is somewhere on that color scale exactly where white cuts off from gray and black cuts off from gray. And those lines for me were the clear line in the sand of what decisions that I had to make in order to maximize my life after drug addiction. Black and white were all of the people, places, and things and the priorities that I needed to do in order to get my life in order. And all of the gray area is all that evil. It's all that temptation. It's all of the stuff that holds you back from becoming the best person possible. And being fully transparent, I let way too much of the gray area into my life whenever I was first in early stages of rehab. Like, I would try to still hang out with some of the same people. I would still try to do some of the same things while trying to implement new things into my life. And it just doesn't work like that. if you have a specific goal and a specific thing that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's very simple or very life altering like mine, you have to live life in the black and the white, because the gray area is only going to fuck up the progress that you want. The black and the white is the freedom of your decision making power, and the black and the white is the authority and confidence of those decisions. Now, spinning this back on someone that might have a health goal or a fitness goal, right? If someone has a certain goal of losing that 10 to 15 pounds, the black and the white in this situation is eating in a calorie deficit. It's making sure you're consistent with your workouts. It's only eating whole foods for a certain amount of time. Maybe eating 80 to 90% clean and letting yourself slip maybe 10 or 20% of the time instead of 50% of the time of what kept the weight on for you. And the gray area in this situation is possibly slacking on your workouts. The Ben & Jerry's that might be in the freezer, the pizza that might get ordered in some nights, DoorDash, Uber Eats, all that stuff. All that stuff is gray area that you lose control of your goal in. So live life in the black and the white and don't let gray area take control. Number 7, community and structure is something everybody needs. You don't have to do everything on your own. And during rehab, community is such a strong component of the recovery program. That circle of people that I was with for 9 weeks, I probably was more vulnerable to those people than I will be to 99% of people outside of rehab in my entire life. It's a circle of trust, and you bond through trauma. You really do. And even outside of the rehab program, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Narcotics Anonymous, there's all these different groups that center around community of keeping each other sober. And the same thing is true with normal everyday people. If you see people that are very intertwined with their faith, they have small groups, they have church groups. If some people are very involved in their fitness, there are gym communities because they share that fitness goal together. There are so many groups that you can learn from each other. You can have a community, you can have a bond, and all of these groups are made so that you can share experiences together and grow together in that specific region, whether it's faith, whether it's fitness, any avenue of your life. A sense of community with anything that you're trying to grow in is helpful. And the last thing here is structure, which I'll touch on very briefly. Now, structure, for me, rehab was every single day, and it was over a topic that I was not well versed in at all. I didn't know what I was walking into at all, but every single day I learned different aspects of what I was supposed to learn on how to stay sober, how to get sober in the first place, and how to stay sober long term. But I would have never learned that structure if I didn't go to rehab. Now, spinning that on a normal person, if they are not well versed in certain skills in their life, they go to an external source, whether that's their parents or a mentor or something like that. The two most common things that I thought of this example was if someone needs help getting in shape, they don't just do it themselves if they don't know how to do it. They hire a trainer or a nutrition coach or someone that is very knowledgeable in health and fitness. Same thing is true with someone that wants to learn communication skills or leadership skills. What are those people going to do? They're going to hire a mentor or a life coach or something like that. So some of these things, they're okay to outsource if you're not an expert on those things. And that is totally okay. I was not an expert on how my life was going to go on the day that I hit rock bottom, but I outsourced it and I went to a place where I could learn and develop as a person. The same thing is true with Gen Pop. If you are not well versed, it's okay to reach out. It's okay if you're not well versed in a certain thing. The power of being with others and learning with others and growing with others is huge. Number 8, spirituality works. And some people need to be spiritual. When I say need, they damn well need spirituality in their life. When I was in rehab, I saw some very tough life situations. You also realize sometimes the difficulties of life are too powerful for someone to take on by themselves. This is exactly why I surrendered my problems and my life to Jesus Christ, because it was too much for me to defeat by myself. I needed a sense of a higher power in order to get through the problems that I was doing. I needed to give up my addiction to Him, to Jesus, in order to figure out what my next steps were. And I didn't see that until about a third or halfway through rehab. I didn't realize that I needed to make this big of an adjustment because I could not fucking defeat the thing that was literally killing me. And it's the same thing with a lot of other people that are in rehab. That's why God, not necessarily Jesus, but having the presence of a God in your life, it's a step in the right direction to improve certain aspects or qualities of your life. This isn't to say that you don't have to put the work in if you surrender all your problems to a God, because gosh damn it, you do. You have to put in the work, and you have to put in so much work that it's hard. And a lot of people don't do that work. But for me, it was almost a weight off of my chest and off my shoulders, not needing to go through something alone. And I think that's where spirituality is so, so powerful for addicts, for one, but for everybody else. And one of the things that's kind of cool about this topic is this idea of spiritual awakenings and how you are called to God in the first place. There's an abrupt awakening or a gradual awakening. And I'll start with the gradual first because it's less intense. A gradual awakening is, sometimes years, maybe months or years of, having this little flick of God that every once in a while you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting called in this area, but it's not super, super strong, but it's there. It's gradual. It's nothing incredibly strong to where you need to go do a certain thing right now, but you eventually are awakened and you go towards whichever God that you want. And then the abrupt awakening is, the life altering moment where you need God. And I had one of those, transparently. Mine was very abrupt, and I had a conversation with God for about 2 hours before I thought I wasn't going to live. And it was basically a conversation of me needing God back in my life at the certain time and moment. And I needed God's structure. I needed His guidance. And it was a reminder from Him to me to not give up on all the things that I wanted for myself and that my mom wanted for me. And the main lesson is knowing what I know now, that I would rather go through any struggle, any hardship. I would rather do that with Jesus or a God in my corner rather than not. There's a thing to be said about rock bottom moments in your life. And, whether you've been there or not, I definitely hit mine. And God was there. God will always be there. And for Him seeing me at my worst means I want Him to see me at my best also. And He has that light. He has that flame for me. Now it's my job to put in the work and get to that point. Number 9, there is no end destination with anything. It's all about what you learn in the process of doing things. And first off, with addiction, there is no end destination for addiction. To put it as an example, even if you make it a year, 365 days of being clean and sober, what happens if you fuck up on day 366? It doesn't reverse all of the progress that you made in the first year, but you kind of have to reevaluate all the things that you learned because obviously it didn't work. You went back to the thing that you put in all the structure with to begin. So, yes, I have a goal of being a year completely clean and sober from everything. But if I fuck up on day 366, it means that I have to go back to the drawing board and figure out a new set of things that works after a year. And the same thing goes for you, right? Like if you hit this end destination goal, the common example is, oh my gosh, if I could only lose the 10 to 15 pounds, then I would finally be happy. If I could only get rid of these damn love handles, I would finally be happy. Be confident in the mirror. Okay, let's say you do. Let's say you complete it. You lost 15 pounds. You feel great. What did you learn? What did you learn in the process of losing the 10 to 15 pounds? Calorie deficit, stay hydrated, sleep, all those things. The things that you learn is what makes the changes sustainable in the first place, to keep the weight off or to do the goal. I promise you, recovery and sobriety is going to be something I have to work on literally every fucking day the rest of my life. If I focus on a certain finish line or a certain end goal, I'm toast because I'm only focusing on not fucking up until the end goal. If I focus on the process one day at a time and what I'm learning about myself and about certain things in the process, it will be worth its weight in gold with all the wisdom that I get. And the same for you. It's going to be worth its weight in gold with the wisdom that you receive, focusing on the process and things that you learn versus the end goal per se. Number 10, last one here. Life is so precious. Do not take it for granted. And going on with this is be grateful for things. Practice gratitude. And it's kind of funny that I have super serious topics and I try to alleviate them with a little bit of humor, but comedy is so real. Like, life is short. Laugh every once in a while. Smile more. Don't take things too serious, but realize also you only get one chance at this life. It is so precious. And coming from somebody that almost fucked that up, you have no idea, unless you've been through it, of what it feels like, what it looks like from your perspective of almost losing a life. Like, it's terrifying. And those feelings of almost losing your life, you will do anything possible to not go towards that ever again. And that is the biggest life lesson of having life be so precious. And this ties into, life situations you don't like, people that don't fill your cup up, things in your life that don't bring you passion. Life is too damn short to not try to change those things. You have to put intentful effort into try to change those things. Don't just say fuck it and get rid of them without thinking about it or making a plan. But life is way too precious. And, in rehab, people's problems were incredibly complex and emotional. Like, you hear stories of legal trouble, family trouble, health troubles, and it's one, sad, but two, it makes you realize a lot of the problems that you might be dealing with in life are just inconveniences and not actual problems. Because when life, like this actual thing, your life is in jeopardy, it puts your life into perspective. It gives you a whole different sense of what life is. So, yeah, to wrap up, 10, life is too precious. Make the most out of your life. Laugh a little bit, smile, practice gratitude, be grateful. But yeah, these 10 for me were, pretty powerful. And I had to look through about 87,000 pieces of paper in my binder to just get an idea of what I wanted to share. But I did get the question of what I did learn in rehab and how it compared to like normal people. And I think every single one of these could compare to an everyday normal person. Not that you might not be doing any of these at all, but I think if you even optimize one of these things or some of these things, it could make life a lot easier, or you could see a different perspective, gain a different view of one of these 10 points. So, yeah, I'm actually curious. If you made it this far, I might be very interested in releasing something to where you have a platform, or there's some type of group where you get like a daily reflection question to just sit down with yourself and really think about the question at hand. So if you are this far, let me know, because I just made that up on the fly. But in rehab, I actually thought about it quite a bit. So yeah, solo episode, Nick's notes. Hopefully I'll be doing a lot more stuff like this. Until I talk to you guys next, take care. Love yous.